Well met, this is herbalist and High Priest Ogonslav from the Covenant of the Open Mind, and this is Flora of the World. Today we'll be talking about pumpkins, as well as harvesting some of our own we have grown in our own patio garden. So a little info about pumpkins real quick before we get started. Pumpkins are a cultivator of the winter squash, and they're in the gourd family and are botanically a fruit, not a vegetable, which I thought for the longest time growing up. They're native to North America and are one of the oldest domesticated plants, having been used as early as 7000 BC. So we're talking about an ancient plant here, guys. It's really cool. It's actually one of my favorite plants of all time. And so with 112 varieties out there, there's sure to be some sort of species that everybody will like. I've actually personally made it a life goal of mine this season to try and grow all 112 species in my lifetime. This year I've grown 3 so far, and so I'll go ahead and show you those real quick. The only reason I grew 3 this year only is because I didn't decide to make this a life goal of mine until I already had these growing and it was already in the peak growing season, so it was too late to really grow anymore. But this coming up season, I plan on laying things out and actually planning and organizing so I can grow at least 5 variety per year. I already have 7 types of seeds saved. A lot of them are more the exotic kind. I'm really excited to grow a variety that's called pumpkin on a stick. I'll show you a picture of them right here. They're really neat. So I'll make sure to make a video of me planting those and getting those ready next season. But let's go ahead and show some of the pumpkins I already grew this year. Okay, so here I have our 3 varieties that I grew this year. We have the small ornamental Jack Be Little type. These are really good just for, decorations and drawing little faces on them. We have the classic carving pumpkin, the Carolina Field pumpkin. These are the typical kind that you'll find in supermarkets and pumpkin patches that people choose to carve faces out of, and the pumpkin seeds that you get out of them are really good for baking and eating. They're not really the tastiest to eat. I guess they'd be good for making them in pie if you're mixing a lot of sugar, but they're kind of bitter. They're not the best for eating. The sugar pumpkins are usually the variety that are good for eating. They're a little whiter in color and a little smaller. And the third type that I grew this year is the Big Macs. This one is a little bit on the small variety, and I say small, but this guy still weighs about 50 pounds. The Big Macs variety are the big kind that you see that tend to grow. And finally, this variety is the really big variety that you see people growing in competitions and whatnot for size. Usually they can grow upwards to 200 pounds amazingly, but with this kind, it is not for eating because of the big size that they get. They will actually start rotting from the inside before they're ready to they reach their max volume and size. So these are not really meant for eating, they're more just for show, an ornamental type. But yeah, these are the 3 variety I grew this year. They were a lot of fun. They took up a lot of space in our yards. That's one thing about pumpkins that I'll show you with our current pumpkin plant we still have growing, just how big the plant is and how much space they can take up. So let's go check that out next. So this is the Big Macs pumpkin that I have growing. There's still some fruit growing on it, as you can see. And also, as you can see, this is all just one plant, and it's taking up our entire patio space. It originally started right there at the base of this rose bush and has just sprawled out over this huge area. It's growing up the trees. It collapsed our tomato plant over there. I had to take it off the fence several times. They just grow all over the place. So if you plan on growing pumpkins of your own, just keep that in consideration, that they need a really big space, or you could also just put trellises and have them grow up. That's another valid option that many people do to try to save space when growing these pumpkins. So there's several ways to know when a pumpkin is ready to harvest. The easiest way is to just look up the variety of pumpkin. If you know what it is, look up when it's ready to harvest, how many days it is to harvest, and just do the math and go from there. That's the easiest way. But if you don't know what the variety is, or if you're like me and like to just spend time with the plant, then here are some of the other ways to know by just looking at the pumpkin when they're ready to harvest. Number one is the color. Matured pumpkins should have minimal or no gloss at all. Let me show you. Notice how these two are a deeper color orange and really don't have any gloss at all compared to these guys over here, who are not only lighter in color, but also just have this glossy shine to them. The one over here is much easier to notice with the reflection of the leaves off of it. Another indicator is looking at the vine of the fruit. If when you pick the fruit up and the vine is flexible and has some bend to it, that means it's still receiving nutrients from the plant and it's not ready to harvest. If it looks withered or it just breaks when you lift the pumpkin up, then that means it's ready to harvest. It's no longer receiving nutrients. The third is skin hardness. Fingernail and try to pierce the skin. Does it do minimal damage or no damage at all, or can you pierce it all the way inside? With this one, I can't really pierce it that deeply, so you know it's ready to harvest. Now, I know some people say that another good way to check for ripeness of the fruit is by giving it a good thunk and seeing if it sounds hollow or not. That, in my experience, is not always very reliable because it's very dependent on the variety that you're growing. This technique that people say to use are for the Carolina field pumpkins, the standard jack-o'-lantern carving pumpkins, because giving it a thunk when it's ready to harvest means that it's at its optimal thickness. But with pumpkin that you grow for food, giving it a thunk and seeing if it sounds hollow or not can actually mean that it's overripe and has led to rot from the inside. So giving it a thunk is not always the best way. It just depends on the variety that you're growing. Finally, when you're done picking the pumpkin off the vine, it's best to leave it in a dry, sunny spot for a few days to let it cure properly if you plan on storing it for later use. Sudden wardrobe change. Anyway, that's all I have for you guys this video. I hope you found some parts of it helpful. Until next time, from everybody at the Covenant of the Open Mind, blessed be.